Hello guys, how you doing? Welcome. I'm Sim UK, and Train Sim World 3 has just released. Well, it's about to release, sorry, on the 6th of September. I don't think anyone saw that coming, did they? Joking aside, if you don't know who I am, then you don't really know Train Sim World. And if you don't know how I feel about Train Sim World, then you haven't seen my previous video, which I know for a fact worked its way all the way up to the very top of Dovetail Games, because so many of you emailed me and told me that you had sent it directly to people who worked there. And I know for a fact that that video ruffled some feathers and upset a few people, one of which, Sam Bennett, which honestly guys, you're being so subdued by this guy who's pretending to be on your side. I know you don't believe me, but this is just a little snippet of Sam Bennett, the reality of it. He says here that using his knowledge and experience of the difference between what your consumers say they want and what they actually mean, he's created innovative new approaches to monetization and player retention that have achieved success. So first of all, just to clarify, he thinks he knows what you want better than you do. Secondly, his end goal, regardless of your position or opinion or feelings on anything in the game, is to monetize you and keep you playing the game. He's a shill. That's all he is. He's basically there to make them money and make you think that he's on your side. And I don't know why so many of you have fallen for it. I really don't. The man is an absolute liability. Brilliant for businesses, terrible for consumers, because he'll fleece you. It'll tell you things like, if it's not on the to-do list or the roadmap or whatever they call it these days, then it's not being worked on. Well, I proved with my last video that head tracking had been on that list for a very long time, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So even being on that list means it's not being worked on. The whole thing is a sham. Everyone says that he's created a sense of trust between Dovetail Games and the community. Now, if Dovetail Games didn't operate the way they did, they wouldn't need to create that situation or uncreate that situation. So it's a Dovetail Games business practice thing, and that's what I dislike about Dovetail Games, is that, and everybody and everything that touches Dovetail Games ends up being consumed by this overwhelming sense of putting profit before anything else. And they all turn that way. I've got loads of stuff I could show you, or you can just go and search yourself. Go and look at people who have worked at Dovetail Games and see what their opinion of the company is. Standard opinion across the board is everyone who works there are really, really lovely people, but the way they do things is completely wrong. Like dishonest, distrustful, poorly designed, badly implemented. It's just everyone. I've seen so many reviews that say the same thing. Go look for yourself. Anyway, that's who I am. Now, if you watch my channel, which some of you may do, you'll know that any reviews I put together are honest and fact-based. I'm not trying to pull any punches. I'm certainly not trying to sell you anything. If anything, I will try and tell you everything that's wrong with the game, so that at the end of a review, if you still feel like you want to buy it, there's no way you're going to regret that purchase. That's my logical thinking. If I tell you everything that's wrong with the game and you still want to buy it, then that's the right game for you. So let's have a little look at the Train Sim World 3 launch video, which I've already watched and I've already commented on, and I've got there are definitely some positives here, but some big concerns. I've been saying for a long time that Dovetail Games don't use OOP procedures. The first rule of object-oriented programming is you do not copy and paste your code, and Dovetail Games have been doing that for years, and that is why there are so many bugs on so many DLCs, and the whole thing does not work properly. I urged them, I encouraged them, I said the best thing they can do is rip it up and start again. Not start again, completely start again, but start again from a fresh base. Train Sim World 3. Unfortunately, I'm not sure they've done that because they're going to support Train Sim World 2 content. And there's a lot of problems in the Train Sim World 2 content. So I think we're just going to see more of the same, but with the Train Sim World 3 tag on it. And I think it's £40 on Steam or something. It's not all bad news, and it could turn out to be really, really good. Obviously, since my last video, there have been some promotions. 𝗦𝘂𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀, really good guy. Definitely go check out his YouTube channel. I don't go there anymore because of Dovetail Games, because of the way they treat people and the lies they tell. And in addition to that, since my last video, I said I'd never buy another Dovetail Games product, and I haven't. I've stuck to that. But friends and community members have bought me copies, DLCs of Train Sim World content, and I will be putting some videos out on those soon. But this is about Train Sim World 3, so let's jump in and see how we really feel about it.
Welcome to the announce of Train Sim World 3, launching on September the 6th, 2022. I'm joined today by Matt Peddleston, our exec producer for Train Sim World. Hello, Matt. How's it going?
Hi, JD. I'm very good, thank you.
Good, good. And
they've really upped the production value, which I like, but I think it's intended to give them more credibility. But I'm not sure it quite pulls that off, to be fair.
We are here today to talk to you about the next instalment in the Train Sim World franchise, Train Sim World 3. Now, we're going to be going into some of the key features today, as well as also the routes that we're announcing. That's going to be very, very exciting. We're also going to be hopefully talking to you a little bit about some of the things that we know you're very excited about and you want to hear answers about right now.
Okay, well, let's just jump in and start there. I've got a bit of a list in my head of things I want to see in Train Sim World 3. Longer routes, which they've got. More complex trains like the CSX heavy haul trains were. Do you remember how good that was? When that released, everyone was so excited about Train Sim World 2. And then everything that's released since then has been a really dumbed down basic version. I want everything in the cockpit to work. I very much doubt they're going to pull that off. I'd love to see if they do. That would be fantastic. But I just don't think they're going to do it. I don't think as a company they prioritize doing the best job over making more money. I just don't think they do. In addition to that, controller support, proper controller support, not the slapdash half-assed controller support system that they've got now with the rail driver system, which isn't the best system in the world. It's just awful. There are so many things I want to see, but I very much doubt they're going to deliver on all of it. There's one thing they're delivering on, which is quite exciting, dynamic weather. And I, and probably hundreds of you out there, have been asking for that for a very long time. So that's at least a small positive.
Before we get started, Matt, tell us a little bit about Train Sim World 3 without revealing too much about what we're going to be talking about later.
Dynamic, high-speed, beautiful adventure.
And not a Teams leak in sight. So, Matt, tell me a little bit about what the team have been working on and how we've got to the point where we're at now, because it's been very quiet. We've not talked very much to the players about what they can expect. So tell us a little bit more, again, without revealing too much.
So the team have spent a lot of time working on some really fundamental aspects of the visuals of the game and looking at some of the underutilized areas of the system and sort of completing their vision, if you like, and bringing them out to other parts of the game. We'll cover all of this stuff as we go through.
That is a teaser, if ever I heard one. We're not going to keep you in for suspense for any longer. So without further ado, here are the 3 routes that you can expect from Train Sim World 3. So, first up, you might see the image that we have behind us of a certain German locomotive. And we are delighted to announce the first route coming to Train Sim World 3 is Schnellfahrstrecke Kassel-Wolfsburg.
Wonder how many times he had to practice that. I'm not sure I could say that. 𝗦𝘂𝗯𝘀𝗃 Castle Wurzburg. That's pretty terrible. He definitely did a better job than I did.
High speed?
High speed.
High speed. Oh, we are very excited about this one. We have wanted to do a proper German high-speed route for a very, very long time.
I've got to say, I know a lot of you out there really, I don't know why, you're not really that big a fan of the German routes. I really like the German routes. Some of my favourite DLCs are the German routes. I just like the German trains and the German systems a bit better. So, I mean, for me, this is a positive.
And as you can see in the background, we have a new loco to add to our arsenal as well. Matt, tell us a little bit more.
So this train is the BR401 ICE1. This is the original first generation intercity express train.
Ah, that explains the slightly, I don't know how to put it, slightly less chiselled looks. I thought it was the ICE3, but yeah, okay.
And one of the trains the German community has been asking for the most since we first launched the ICE3. Its max speed on the route is about 280 kilometers per hour. But what's really cool about this particular route is you're going to be doing that speed for a long time.
It's a long route, isn't it?
It's 186 kilometers, this route.
186 kilometers. That is considerably longer than any other route they've released. And that's good. But I've always maintained it would be great if you could connect routes together. That's something I'd really like to see. And they don't talk about that at all. So again, I think Train Sim World 3 is going to miss out on that. But at least they've got a long route. Now, the question is, right, this is key. If you're a long-term fan of Train Sim World, you'll probably agree with me on this. Some of the routes they've released are really, really nice to look at. And then there are other routes that are so bad, you can't believe that they actually released them in that state. When you release a route, you want that route. There are key things along certain routes that need to be there. Can you imagine if they released a racetrack without a key corner or without a key building, or the trees at Donington? That would never be acceptable. But Dovetail Games have done exactly that. They have left out key elements, key items, key buildings, key structures from very well-known routes, and they just seem to deem that to be acceptable. Now, that's on very short routes quite often. They've just thrown them together effectively. And this very, very long route, which they claim to be beautiful, I just question how precise it's going to be. Now, I've never been to Germany. I've never travelled on German routes, so I can never vouch for its authenticity. But if it's long and genuinely put together to look realistic, then this is great news. If it's just thrown together and slapdash and it's full of, clipping and issues here, there and everywhere, especially with the signalling problems we've seen in the past, this could be an absolute nightmare. I hope it's going to be good, but September 6th is not, excuse me, is not a very long time away, so it better be 100% ready. And obviously they do a lot of their beta testing in like Romania and India, I think they said they do it in. And to be honest with you, I don't think anyone thinks that they've been doing a particularly good job. So what they should do is get an in-house beta team who aren't a bunch of fanboys and just say, oh my God, everything's great and lovely. They need critics, people in there that say, well, this doesn't work, this isn't right. People who actually know what they're talking about, people who actually have knowledge of train systems and signalling, etc. That's what they really need to stop these bugs from coming out. And they also need, and this is key, to stop copying and pasting their code in order to create a second DLC, because that is how these bugs have got into the system and are still in the system, because it's not centralized at all. It's just bits of copied code here, there and everywhere. It's an absolute bloody mess. And that is not, Samuel, object-orientated programming procedures. And that's what I've been saying for a very long time.
And that is the longest route that we have ever included in a Train Sim World game. So that is a big, big one to be starting with.
You really feel like you're going somewhere. You're starting off in Kassel in the north.
Can I just say that I do not believe that Train Sim World 3 has in any way done anything particularly to enable the routes to be longer. I think this has always been a possibility, but they chose against it. So maybe the video I made last time has ruffled some feathers and they've had a long chat about it and said, well, maybe we should start doing longer routes, because these really short routes do not make you feel like you're going anywhere. They make you feel like you're nipping to the shop for a pint of milk. That's not what train drivers want. They want a long-haul, hardcore train sim route. And if they can pull it off, fantastic. My suspicion, here's a prediction for you. My suspicion is that just like CSX Heavy Haul, they'll launch with something really good, and then everything after it will be slightly shorter, slightly less detailed, slightly more broken. That's a prediction. Tell me if I'm right or tell me if I'm wrong.
And you go via Fulda and then down to Würzburg in the south, and you've covered some kilometres by the time you get to the end. You really have. And the journey itself is really pretty. You're going through a massive number of tunnels and going over these tremendous viaducts along the way. So it's like a traditional high-speed line these days, where they've just cut the line through the landscape, built tunnels where they needed to, built viaducts where they needed to, and it's just a really interesting drive.
Yeah, and as you said, this is something that will take players from 0 to 280. You'll be staying there for quite a substantial amount of time. It is a significantly longer route than any of the routes that we've seen thus far within Train Sim World. What else does the route have?
I wonder why they don't elaborate on that more. How have we managed to suddenly make it much, much longer? Do you know what I mean? How have we managed to double or triple or whatever? I'm not sure what the longest route is, to be honest with you, on Train Sim World 2, because I've really stopped caring about this company and this game. But how have they managed to do that? What changes have occurred in order for them to be able to do that? They don't talk about these things.
What other rolling stock do we have included with the route?
I remember this from yesterday. This is actually quite cool. They definitely kicked off well. I'm quite excited about this element of it, and I don't really like rolling stock that much, but freight that much. But yeah, I like what Matt's about to say here.
So in addition to the 𝐒𝐢𝐦, there's also the 𝐒𝐢𝐻, which obviously has been available previously. And there is the BR185.2 for freight traffic. So this route is exclusively an intercity route. You don't see the regional trains running along the route. You'll see them at the end stations, and there's been layers added to add a nice variety of regional traffic at the end stations. But the journey up and down the route is going to be the white and red intercity high-speed trains with freight of an evening. So actually, at the night time, this route comes to life because all of the freight that's been queued up ready to go.
So it might be a bit boring in the day, but this bit is what intrigued me the most.
Suddenly starts filling up the train, filling up the line. But the journey of the freight is different because it has to get pulled aside if there's an ICE wanting to get past. So actually, you're constantly going to get looped. And that's covered actually specifically in one of the scenarios and throughout the service mode as well. So very busy timetable for actually what would normally be a relatively few number of trains, with a lot more complex things to do with those trains. So really, really interesting traffic patterns. The other interesting thing is the 𝐒𝐢𝐻 actually runs to different speeds than the 𝐒𝐢𝐦 does, because it's a lighter train, which means it's more susceptible to problems over the tall viaducts, very, very tall viaducts. So they slow it down to keep it safe. So actually, even though it's two high-speed trains, they're actually got different driving patterns, different speed patterns. So it's going to be two different experiences.
That's great to hear. And as I say, very, very excited about this. We're going to be able to give you lots more information on all of the routes that we're talking about tonight, as well as also all of the features in the next few weeks. But for there, let's call time on Schnellstraßstrecke Kassel-Wolfsburg.
He's quite rightly, he's very proud of himself for being able to say that. But yeah, kudos to the man. He's absolutely smashed that out of the park.
On to our UK route that we're including within Train Sim World 3. We ummed a lot about what route to do for this particular region, and obviously it's close to our hearts. Matt, do you want to take this one away? What route are we going to be doing for the UK?
So for the UK, we're taking probably one of the most popular routes in Train Sim World, and we're making it bigger and we're making it better. Southeastern High Speed.
Okay, I've got a little question here. So anything that you bought from Train Sim World 2 is going to be transferred over, and I assume that the Southeastern High Speed is one of the DLCs from Train Sim World 2. Correct me if I'm wrong. So does that mean that everybody is going to get this upgraded route and their existing system, or will the old system be upgraded to this new route? I'm just curious. I just thought I'd ask.
Currently available runs from London's at Pancras Station as far as Ebbsfleet, where it switches to the classic lines and goes to Faversham. What we've done is we've extended the high-speed lines so that you can go through Ebbsfleet now all the way to Ashford. And then we've extended the classic lines so that after Gravesend, you'll then go via Northfleet and so forth.
Can I just say, and I've said this for years, the modelling on the trains is second to none. I mean, really, really high quality. Always has been. Yeah, I just wanted to make that known. I'm not just picking on Dovetail Games for the sake of picking on them. Where they do things well, I will absolutely congratulate them. And always their modelling has been superb. I mean, just look at this. There is so much detail here. If you get up close to it, sometimes the textures are a bit crappy, but that's a Dovetail Games thing. But, you know, from 10 feet away or whatever, they do look spectacular. Really impressive stuff. Really impressive.
There's 5 extra stations on the classic lines. What that means is that your journey, if you just want to run at high speed in the Javelins, the Class 395, is substantially longer.
Yeah.
It's about another 40 miles of high speed running. There's plenty to do, a really rich service pattern throughout the day, covering all the different things that you can do on this route.
Absolutely, and that's about 45 extra miles, isn't it?
So that equates to about another 10 minutes to your drive. So I would anticipate that to be about 40 to 45 minutes total, something like that.
In total, it makes this route something like 90 miles.
Okay, brilliant. And that is Train Sim World's first ever route extension, Southeastern High Speed.
So that's a route extension. So I come back to my initial one thing I've been asking for a long time is the ability to connect two routes together to make them longer. Is this perhaps a test to see how viable that is? And if so, will we see more of it in the future? Because if we can, then that would definitely boost the overall quality of Train Sim World 3, as it will be now. And that would be a great thing. People would really get behind that. So yeah, it's a query. I don't know if that's what they're doing. I'd love to think that that's what they were doing, but yeah, it's Dovetail Games. You never really quite know what they're doing, do you?
We're really looking forward to this one, Matt. It's a challenging one because at the same time we've obviously got the source material in Train Sim World 2. What I really want to drill into, what has been improved? Why is this a really interesting opportunity for players of all kinds?
So one of the things that we wanted to do was not just add extra miles to the route. That's obviously a really exciting extra thing, is these extra journeys. But the existing route, as great as it was, there was a lot of really good feedback from players about where they felt it could be better or things that they liked and so forth. So we've listened to that feedback, we've gone through that. So things like all the overhead line equipment have all been ripped out and redone. The signalling has had substantial overhaul, including adding in approach control and TPWS OSS grids that are all fully functioning now. So
I'm not a train buff. Someone explain to me what that means.
More safety systems, so a better drive. Beyond the technical side of it, it should also include some reworking to the track itself. There were a number of junctions and curves that were a bit tight for the speeds that you were going. So they've all been relayed to smooth them out and make them a nicer drive.
This is really... Dovetail Games, under the guidance of Sam, are really good at upselling something that's really quite crappy. a lot of what's being said here, it sounds like what I would want to hear. It really does. The question is, have they really done that to a high spec, or are they just saying that they've done that to a high spec? Because Train Sim World 2, Train Sim World 1, there were a lot of promises that never delivered on, ever, not even tried to deliver on. And that's part of the reason why I used to do beta testing for Dovetail Games DLC releases, even though they deny any knowledge of it. I'd just go back and look at how I was playing DLCs before they released. That would indicate that I was doing beta testing. But back then, I was saying to, you're not doing what you say you're going to do. And that's why they cut me off and stopped me from beta testing, because I was calling them out on their lies and deception. My hope is that maybe the big video I made a couple of months back, last year, whenever it was, ruffled some feathers. Some people got sacked, some people got promoted. A new, better Dovetail Games will emerge. I really genuinely hope that's the case. Only time will tell.
But then we've also gone through scenery and tried to just polish up the scenery a little bit. Look for things where we thought, actually, that could be better. Particularly in areas where we've done more with 𝐒𝐬𝐿 now, because you can drive through 𝐒𝐬𝐿. So 𝐒𝐬𝐿 lowest platform needed to be done to a full extent. And how did you walk between 𝐒𝐬𝐿 lower and 𝐒𝐬𝐿 upper? So all of that walkway is done. You can walk through 𝐒𝐬𝐿 station now. It's brilliant. It's really cool. So it's really been a case of just reviewing the route, looking at the feedback and saying, what can we do to make this really good?
So Matt, tell me a little bit about the rolling stock that players can experience in Southeastern High Speed.
So leading the way with the Southeastern High Speed is that staple of the line, the Class 395 Javelins. These are 140 miles per hour in the UK, and they use the TVM 430 signalling system because they run so much faster. But they also have this unique multi-power ability, so when they get to 𝐒𝐬𝐿, you lower the pantograph, drop the third rail, and you carry on just using third rail. So very, very cool, very super modern train. Looks like a spaceship cockpit when you get in the front.
Are all the buttons clickable? Does everything work the way it's supposed to? Do the mirrors actually have any reflections on them? We'll have to wait and see.
We've got the Class 375 bringing up on the local commuter services, the Class 465, which used to be a DLC, and we've taken the opportunity to bundle it in with the main route, and it services a different section of the commuter traffic. And because we brought it into the pack, means that in redoing the timetable, which we were wanting to do anyway with the extra services that you can do with the Javelin, it's enabled us to really sort out what trains go where, essentially, on the route, and get everything doing the services they're supposed to be doing. So that's very cool. Then the Class 66 has been added to the route as well, meaning that freight services and so forth are now standard with the route, whereas previously they were a layer. And then along with the Class 66, we've brought in the MFA and J&A wagons, one of which is new to the product. So there's some really cool variety that you can see in the yards at 𝐒𝐬𝐿 Junction, for example, and what you can do with that Class 66. So pretty exciting round of stock to come with it.
Absolutely. I took the Javelin in this morning, can vouch, good train. But should we go to the US?
Let's go to the US.
I think we should go to the US, and specifically, let's go to a little bit of California, shall we? Do you want to give me the name of the final route that players can be expecting in Train Sim World 3?
I'm super excited about this. This is a route that's been one of my favourites for a long time across many simulators. And this route is the Cajon Pass.
This is one of the first routes that was ever put into Train Simulator, wasn't it?
In Train Simulator Classic, it's one of the original launch routes that it had for the US audience when it came out. So it's a well-known, well-loved route. It's a supremely interesting route to drive. And it's got some of the steepest, I think it is the steepest gradients in the game at the moment, on mainline trains certainly. And really interesting scenery throughout the journey. It's when you're not going up and down the main gradient of it, it's got some decent speed limits as well. So don't feel like you're going to be stuck at 25 miles an hour for the entire journey. But similarly, when you're coming down what gets up to a 3% gradient, stick to 25 miles an hour, because 10,000 tons doesn't really enjoy faster than 25 miles an hour.
And speaking of 10,000 tons, 10,000 tons of our first BNSF locos as well.
Yeah.
So for those who are not aware, we managed to obtain the BNSF license earlier this year. And this is the first opportunity that you'll have to play the BNSF locos within the Train Sim World franchise.
That's good if you're into American stock, which, to be honest with you, I'm not really that interested. But my question would be, the CSX heavy haul trains had engine compartments that you could open and switch on and turn on some valves and stuff, and it wasn't very detailed, but my God, did it feel good. Are we going to have that again? Or have they just done away with that because it takes too long?
Can you tell us a little bit about the locos included, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So the lead loco on this is the 𝐒𝐢𝐦 𝐔𝐊 It's a really fascinating loco. It's got some really interesting, unique behaviour. It looks to the casual observer like a big American loco with the wide comfort cabs, but it's got this really unique trick where it can disable the power and spread its load across just the 4 outer axles on the bogies. And you can see that in the way the animations work. If it thinks it's going to lose grip, it rediverts all of its weight distribution. It's very clever. So the C4 is leading the way and doing all the heavy duties on the route. And then coming up, supporting that, is the good old SD40-2.
Oh, good old SD40.
It's the staple. There are something like 4,000 of them made. They're going to appear everywhere. But most importantly, we're in pumpkin liveries now.
Yes.
We're in the BNSF livery. So it's the BNSF version of the SD40-2. And it will be supporting with local and switching duties.
I'm looking forward to seeing all the orange on the new route, all the orange. And obviously that route is a substantial route as well. It covers, as you said, lots of different types of gradients and lots of different types of scenery, but it is a long route as well.
Yeah, so from San Bernardino to Barstow, California, you're looking at about 85 miles. And particularly the descent from the summit down to San Bernardino is a real challenge with a big train. It's really good fun.
And what that means for you number crunchers is that with Train Sim World 3, you'll get an extra 280 miles, and that's 460 kilometers worth of track, which is pretty impressive if I do say so myself.
It's amazing. We wanted to deliver the 3 biggest experiences we've done to date, and I think we're doing that.
Absolutely. But I think that's probably about enough for the routes. I think we've whetted everybody's appetite just about enough to keep coming back for more over the next 3.5, 4 weeks before September the 6th, where we'll be telling you a little bit more during our live streams, articles, videos. We've got plenty more coming for you. But I think it's about time we talked about features. So we've talked routes, and now it's time to talk features. Those things that every player is going to be able to experience when they get a copy of Train Sim World 3. And you might have guessed by our introductory live stream countdown, you might have seen some of the screenshots that we've been showing. One of the key features of Train Sim World 3 is the ability for us to include dynamic weather, which is very, very exciting. We know this has been something that players have been looking forward to for a long time. And it's been a bit of a monumental effort to get it in, hasn't it, Matt?
Getting it into service mode has been what the real goal of where we're at, and it means that you get this level of unpredictability. You don't quite know how this service is going to play out, that level of unpredictability is certainly something that players have been asking for a long time, which is really, really exciting.
Yeah, and for those who are perhaps...
That is a massive plus for Train Sim World 3, and it's kind of filtering through in my head. I kind of get it now. In order to put any kind of new features in a Train Sim World game, they need to create a new Train Sim World game and charge you again for the same game so that you can pay for the upgrades that they're putting into the game. That seems to be what's happening here, doesn't it? Pretty sure.
Aware of what dynamic weather means at a basic level. What does it allow?
Who on God's earth does not know what dynamic weather is? Unless you're 10 or under. If you're into trains at all, you know what dynamic weather is.
Within a service to happen.
So simply put, dynamic weather means that where your journey might start out in a light cloud in the sky and it's all good. Maybe 10 minutes later, the clouds are starting to form and fill up, and then it starts getting a bit overcast and now it's raining. and now it's raining a lot, and the heavens have opened, and what you're finding now is maybe the grip is not so good. The temperature's gone down to it's now started snowing, and what started out as looking like a fun day has pretty much turned into a not fun day, you know, except for all of us are really enjoying this by this point.
I was going to say, it sounds more to me like a fun day has turned into an even funner day.
Obviously.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of this level of unpredictability. One time you'll be fine, another time you'll be coming down the hill thinking, oh, I'm fine. And then you lose grip on the track, and you're going to find you need to run a lot slower to cope with this, which means that you're going to have to adapt much more to what's happening in front of you right now.
It also means that they're going to have to actually simulate these effects. And Dovetail games haven't been brilliant at simulating much in the past, so that's going to be a real make or break feature for me. If they've nailed that, if you can actually feel like you've lost grip, that would be excellent. I'm not sure they can pull that off.
Which is how real life would work.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that's, I think, one of the key things that we wanted to get across with this particular update is that it does simulate what would happen in real life. It should make the whole driving experience that much more challenging and that much more exciting.
Absolutely. It means that you're going to have to pay attention to what's going on rather than falling into a robotic. At this point, I always put my brakes on. Well, now it's raining and you weren't expecting it to be raining. Maybe you need to put your brakes on a bit earlier. Maybe don't drive quite so far. All of these different things to consider.
I can't wait to see us do 4-up challenges with this. It's going to be very exciting. More variety, more challenge, more excitement, more freedom. We love it.
Just want to get you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm here for it.
Good, because most of us are bored stiff.
So, dynamic weather. We'll put that to one side for a second because, again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. We've got lots more to talk about. So, we've recently been incorporating a few additional skyboxes into older routes within 𝐒𝐸𝐿 2. But we've been having a little project in the background as well, which we think you're going to like. Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit more?
So, volumetric skies.
Ooh.
What is volumetric skies?
Yes.
Volumetric skies is 3D clouds, put simply. Whereas currently in the game, in the sim, what you have is a texture, a flat texture that tries to simulate what clouds might look like and how they might move around. And it's fine, but you don't get a sense of movement. It's just not quite there because the clouds aren't really there. With volumetric skies, they are really there. They exist in the 3D space that you are in, which means that you're driving an 𝐒𝐢𝐦 at 280 kilometers an hour down the castle line. You're going to be going under clouds. Clouds are going to be moving. You've got this whole extra element of motion going on above you. And
Okay, a couple of things there. Will it affect performance? And will the lighting reflect what has been seen? Because we all know that the headlights on Train Sim World are absolutely pathetic. And the reason why it's so pathetic is because the lighting is so bad. So have they done something to improve that lighting?
it just really brings the whole world to life. And in addition to just bringing the sky to life, these clouds cast shadows, which means sometimes there's going to be darkness underneath a cloud that happens to be blocking the sun. So again, it's just a little bit of variability inside the drive, based on how cloudy it might be at the time.
The changes in...
That's pretty cool if they do it nicely, and they should be able to. It's not that complicated a system. But, you know, for me, and for anyone who knows anything about simulation, the real key to immersion and realism is audio. I would much prefer they do something with the audio than clouds. I don't know, actually. I'm a bit on the fence with that one. I'll take both.
Is marked. We've had a lot of players offer lots of feedback to us on skies and the skybox. This just looks amazing, and I think it offers a real sense of realism. Bearing in mind, when you're driving, it tends to be that at least 50% of your screen will be sky. Yeah. Having that as a kind of a realistic option just feels so much. It feels like we should have done it years ago, but it's been such a
No, it won't be 50%. Maybe in the 𝐒𝐢𝐦 1s and 1 and 2 and 1 and 3, because their windscreens are slightly bigger. Oh, it doesn't really matter. I'm just picking hairs now, splitting hairs.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big challenges is performance, because you start adding these complex clouds and 3D volumes into the skies. It's raising minimum specs essentially. And it's a challenge to make sure that that works well. And actually, with the advancements, this is one of the benefits of an Unreal Engine upgrade we made some time ago now, which enabled us to look at doing this kind of thing. So the team have spent quite a long time evaluating it, working at how best to bring it into the game, and put it into the sync, because as you say, it's half the screen. So we've been really, really keen to try and do what we could there, and boy, does it look good.
I mean, I'll let everyone at home make their decisions for you, but you know which camp I'm in. Okay.
Is it the one that pays you your wages?
Okay, so we have
it might be.
dynamic weather. We've got volumetric skies. And again, you might have clocked something that's slightly different about some of these comparison shots that we're showing and some of the things you're seeing on in the background. There's a reason for that, because we've done a lot of work with the lighting on Train Sim World 3. Matt, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
We started again. We've basically wiped the slate.
Good.
And our tech art team have been doing an amazing job, and they've engineered a complete new system for the way that light is determined, essentially, what the light should be at various points in the day, where it
This is probably the most exciting thing I've heard so far.
should be pointing and all the rest of it. And one of the other factors that we've brought in there is not just making the light look like perhaps it should, but actually measuring everything to the real lumen values. So that when you use the built-in tools in Unreal and you point it and you get the lumen breakdown of what these are realistic numbers now, which actually works out to be thousands of times brighter than what we've got in in Train Sim World 2.
Right, bringing you back to how pathetic the lighting was. When you put the headlights on the train, nothing happened at all. It was awful, and we were telling them for years, it's crap, it's awful. No, they said no, it's just complicated. You don't understand. You're not smart enough to conceive the complexity of lighting. Well, okay. So it turns out we were right and they were wrong, but at least they've acknowledged the fact that it needed to be changed and they've done something about it. So good. Well done.
So actually balancing that.
Actually, let's wait until we see it. But it sounds a lot better.
Thing out has been an enormous challenge. It's probably one of the biggest challenges that we've had in Train Sim World 3, is just throwing away all of the lighting and coming up with this brand new system, which is much more dynamic, reacts to what's going on is much more appropriately affected by the weather and so forth. It really brings everything to life so much more.
Bringing things to life is what we're trying to do with this, making it feel more, there'd be more variety, more kind of freedom to be able to do things in a slightly different way.
One of the other nice benefits of the new lighting system is a technical term, thing that Unreal suppliers think, it's called eye adaptation.
Yes.
And what eye adaptation simulates is what they call the iris effect. So if you stare at a light, your iris shrinks, and
in layman's terms, it's eye adaptation. It's your eye adapting to the change of light.
The world around the light gets darker. And similarly, if you're in a dark room, the iris opens so that you can see what's going on. Well, the iris effect, the eye adaptation, because we're now using all real world lighting, actually now works correctly. One of the really, really cool outcomes of that is, and you'll see it a lot on 𝐶𝐨 is as you swoop out of the tunnels, you're in utter darkness, but your eyes have adjusted, so you can see a little bit of what...
I'd just like to say that the headlights still look pretty pathetic. I'm not impressed with the headlights. I can't see anything. There are two signs coming up at the end of the tunnel here. You probably can't see them until now. That's how bad the lighting is. That's terrible. That's not good. That still needs fixing. That is still not working right.
You come out of this tunnel, you're blinded by the daylight.
That little effect there is quite nice, but they still haven't fixed the light in tunnels, so I'm not happy about that at all. The key thing for me is that those signs shine up way earlier than they do at the moment. Can you imagine if in the real world you could only see a sign when you're doing 140 miles an hour? You can only see a sign 10 feet in front of you.
And then you're
That's madness.
And it just looks so cool.
It's kind of these little things that just really add up to enhancing that experience. And I think, I mean, there's lots of things that we'll be talking about, but this for me is one of my favourite things, actually. You've showed it to us in a couple of build meetings before. This kind of with tunnel bloom effect, we're calling it, and it just gives you the opportunity to kind of, yeah, because your eyes would adjust like that in real life, wouldn't it? And I saw it the first time and I was just like, wow. That's great. I love that.
It's such a big difference over what you've had previously, and some of the static shots I've seen that the team have produced, where they've just had their character stood just on the inside in the tunnel, where their eyes are still adjusted to the dark, but you can see this white-out view at the end of the tunnel, and the light coming into the tunnel on the tunnel wall, and so it just looks stunning.
Okay, Matt. Moving on from the.
I didn't see any light coming in to the tunnel from outside of the tunnel in any of those clips.
Lighting and the volumetric skies and the visual things. I'd like to talk a little bit about UI, so the user interface, what you see on the menu screens when you come into Train Sim World.
I'll be honest, I don't use the UI when I'm driving the train. The only thing I use when I'm learning a route is the icon to tell me where I'm supposed to stop. I don't use anything else at all. But the UI implementation that they had, I think, was all right. It wasn't really necessarily anything particularly wrong with it. But I've got to say, having studied UI at university, I think the new UI design looks a lot better. It reminds me very much of, racing simulator games. They tend to go with this approach, and I think it works really well here. So, thumbs up for that UI team.
To provide a better player experience than perhaps we have been able to in the past.
One of the big things we did is we've conducted.
It's also very much geared towards console players. That's the other thing, because they don't have a mouse to be precise with their actions and whatnot, so they need big clunky buttons that they can flick between. So that's probably the real motivation behind this, but still, I think it does actually look better.
Usability studies to understand how people access what they want to do, because ultimately what we want to do is get people into the cab doing what they want to do, in the right train doing the right thing, and the UI effectively gets in the way of that.
Yeah, so they have clearly taken advice from, I don't know, someone who gave them this advice. They have employed a UI specialist to come and give them proper UI guidance, because these little things he's saying here, this is what you learn at university. These are key terms that you learn at university about UI design. So they've actually employed somebody to help them out with this, which is probably why it looks a lot better than what they've done in the past. Even though I didn't think it looked particularly bad in the past, I do think this is better.
It enables you to do it, but also can get in the way of doing it. So it's just like, well, how can we make that cleaner to get you into the game and playing what you want to do as fast as possible?
Least amount of clicks.
Usability studies on that. And one of the things.
See, look, big, massive buttons, easy top menu, clickable tabs. It's a basic, simple, clean, fresh design. It looks great. I think they've used exactly the right images for each of the buttons. I think it looks really good. So, yeah.
We allowed the UI design
kudos.
Was throw everything away and just think, what do you want it to be? Don't be held back by anything we've done in the past on the user interface. Come up with something completely fresh that solves these problems and make that the goal of this. And that's what they've done in spades. They've really done a great job on that, I think. So one of the things that came out as a key example was you can only pick route first.
Yeah.
So it always starts by picking the route. Particularly with the complexities of substitutions and layers and so forth, there actually might be lots of different places you can drive your favorite train now. But it's always a case of look on that route, look on this route, look on that route. What you want to do is pick your train and to have the sim tell you where you can now do that. So the UI has a choose by train route first. We've also called out all of the training stuff. everything related to tutorials and
This initially really impressed me, the fact that they've stripped this out and they've got a proper training centre now. I think that's a very smart move. I think that's really cool. I think that's going to work really well. Unfortunately, and you'll hear Matt admit to this in a minute, the game comes out on the 6th of September and they've still got features that aren't complete.
training. Now has its own environment.
Well done, Dovetail. Consistency.
Neatly together, so they're easy to find. So you can refresh your memory on something, you can do that. We've looked at things like Scenario Planner. Now, while we haven't added new features to Scenario Planner for Train Sim World 3, what we have done is overhauled the UI quite extensively. And it's significantly easier to do the same job now and a lot more clear what's actually going on. So, yeah, a really big improvement there. So there's just generally a big overhaul and a rethink of how to do this interface. So as you can see from some of these shots, it doesn't look anything like any of the UI we've done in the past, and that's intentional.
The rulebook has been well and truly thrown out of the window, which
We
is
have a whole new rulebook now.
yeah. I think you'll see that as kind of a recurring theme of this.
Is the new rule book called "Do Things Properly the First Time"? I hope so.
That there has been a remit for the teams working on this to kind of just say, well, actually, in an ideal world, how would you do this? Yeah. And let's just not be bound by any of our previous challenges that we've had with stuff. What would be the best way we could do it now? Let's do that.
Exactly. So yeah, the team have really thought about all sorts of things. And one of the key things that we've started doing for a while now, but has been key with all of this change, is making sure that we run all of these designs through various accessibility filters, make sure it still works great for people who have got color deficiency, and so forth. So the UI should still.
I could be wrong, but I think, isn't that a legal requirement? I'm trying to think back to my web dev days. It might be web dev related, like we did some stuff for the government and so on. So maybe it might, thinking back on it now, it might be a government legislation that if it's a government facing, a government generated website, it has to have these things by law. I don't think it stretches to games. Just ignore me on that one.
Still be super accessible.
Brilliant. That's what we like to hear. So, Matt, we've talked a little bit about bringing kind of the helpful guides and tutorials into kind of a place within the user interface. But the next thing we're going to be talking about is something that is completely new. This is something that we've never done before, and we hope you're really going to like. Tell us a little bit about Training Center.
So what we wanted to do with the Training Center was take all of these common tutorials, the simple ones like how do you start and stop a loco, how do you look up, look down, look left, look right, all of this fun stuff, and just do it once. Put it in some single place. So we have all the fundamentals of how.
I don't know who came up with that idea, but well done. It's a good one.
How you get into learning how to play Train Sim World are now done in the Training Center, and they're done once. If you want to refresh your memory on them, then you can go back and play them at any point. But it means that it's not always at every route introduction that you're going to get told how to play the game's basics every time. But the Training Center is it's actually based on a test track in Germany. It's not a model of that test track, it's just based on that in terms of the layout, and it's one that players will recognise.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure when we start to show it in a little bit more detail,
you see the track plan, you'll recognise it instantly.
Even with these shots, you're probably going to be able to recognise what it's based on, but
it isn't a model of that. I just want to make that clear. We are not making a model of it. It's just you've used inspired by the track plan and then gone crazy. We have had a lot of fun. The team wanted to make this a really fun environment because it's going to be the first place that a lot of players will experience Train Sim World. So we wanted to make that versatile so that all different types of trains can be learned and experienced. It's a really good sandbox where if you practice with a train but you don't want to do it on the real route, then this is really good. It's got big looper track around the outside, little loop in the inside, and lots of sidings to use. So yeah, we brought all of this stuff on there. So when you get a new locomotive, it's training that tells you how to use that will be on the Training Center from now on. So it means that you're in a familiar environment, and then when you're familiar with how to drive that particular train, you can then take it onto the real route, and you're already forearmed with how to do that. What we've spent.
They didn't necessarily say it doesn't have it, but I'd like to see an incline on the training centre, especially with all the new dynamic weather weaker brake systems in place. If they're going to be as effective as they're trying to make out they're going to be, then I think an incline on the training centre might be a good idea. I'd like to see that. Tell me your thoughts.
Spending more time on then is adding extra tutorials which be bundled into the training center user interface, but then when you run them they'll take place wherever is appropriate to run them. So the TVM430 tutorial, we've got quite an advanced tutorial which teaches you how to drive to the TVM430 signaling on Southeastern High Speed. That will be happening on that route, but you'll see it in the training center user interface. So really gathering all this stuff up so it's all easy to find, and you don't have to worry about where would I learn how to do TVM430. Go to the training center, click the button, and it will take you where it needs to take you.
Now this is all very well and good for players who are fresh to routes or fresh to the game as a whole, but for the player who is perhaps a little bit more familiar with the way that the game works and the way that their trains operate, what's in it for them? What does Training Centre allow us to do in the future?
So Training Centre is kind of step one of a big change that we want to make. And this is in response to player request as well as something we wanted to do ourselves. And that is to start separating the locomotive DLCs away from the routes that they're bonded to. So just as an example, in Train Sim World 2, the 465 was only usable if you had Southeastern High Speed. If you wanted to run the 465 via Scenario Planner on any other route, you couldn't do that. You had to own Southeastern High Speed. And one of the reasons for that is the tutorial for the 465 was obviously on the route that it was for. Well, we now have a route we can put all those tutorials on, which...
Okay. This sounds like this is in your benefit, and to be fair, there definitely is a benefit here, but what Dovetail Games have actually done is double the amount of DLC. So, previously it was £24 on average, sometimes slightly different, for a route and a couple of locomotives, right? Does that mean that if you get just a route, it's going to be half that price? I'm not sure. Are you? What about just the locomotive and no routes? Is that going to be half the price? Or are Dovetail Games going to start charging £20 for each DLC, that being one locomotive, one route, and thereby charging 40 quid for the locomotive and route that we would have previously got for 25? Keep an eye out for that, guys, because I know what Dovetail Games are like, and this is starting to sound a lot like that.
Gets rid of one of the biggest links that stops that from happening. We have more to do, so this is not something that's there right now, but we will be making all tutorials now for the trains. All the key tutorials will be on Training Centre, and we're continuing to work along that path. So we'll provide updates and roadmaps and so forth as it happens, but this is the goal the direction we want to get in, is to make it to where you can buy the loco DLCs that you want without worrying about whether or not you own the route that it's for.
And that's incredibly exciting. That's something that we know that there's been a lot of call out for in the past, and that players, I think, once they get the hang of it, will actually be something that really enhances their experience. Again, that kind of customizable freedom that you have to be able to then make your own train collection, no matter what kind of routes you might want or need.
Yeah, there are several locomotive DLCs that I know that people have told me that they would they'd want to run anywhere else, but maybe not on the route that it comes with, because that route is not to their flavour. And this direction we're heading in, Training Centre being a big step in that direction, if it makes that a possibility for the future. So as I said, it's not something we're going to make a big change on day one, but we'll keep you updated on roadmaps as we go down that line.
So Matt, we've got lots of new weather patterns,
more roadmaps,
dynamic weather,
because you can always trust in the roadmaps.
Our passengers to cope with those changes. We don't want to leave our passengers out in the rain without anything to protect them, obviously.
Oh, you've given it away, JD.
We've got a little umbrella in the corner here that's probably been giving it away the whole time.
So yes, one of the things it's been talked about by everybody in the past is that why don't your passengers put umbrellas up when it's raining? Because that's hard, apparently. But no, one other area that the team have really worked on, because you're right, and it's a big thing. You're rolling into a station, it's pouring down the rain, and there they are.
Just
not a single umbrella in sight, and it just looks weird, and it breaks.
Okay. Do you know what looks weird? If they're in a station that's undercover and they've got umbrellas up. Let's hope they don't fall into that trap. Still, having said that and pointed out something that they're now going to go, ooh crap, let's make sure we haven't done that. There are more pressing concerns, like the amount of times I pulled up to a station where the train is longer than the platform, and the carriages hanging off the edge past the platform that don't fit on there have all the doors open. I've hated that since day one. Has that been fixed? I mean, I haven't played Dovetail games for a long time now because I don't like the way they do things. But has that been fixed? Is that going to be fixed?
Breaks you out of the immersion a bit. So now there will be umbrellas.
Yay! So Matt, we've talked
And someone pointed out to me, I didn't notice this in all honesty, but all the umbrellas are green. I'm sure that will be fixed for release, especially seeing as someone's mentioned it now.
Now let's talk rain effects, because
can I go? I bet I can't go back like 13 seconds, can I?
Not a single umbrella in sight, and it just looks weird, and it breaks you out of the immersion.
I just want to see if they have got umbrellas up. So, right, you see this guy here? Stood under the platform, he's got his umbrella up. So, as I just said, that would be silly, right? You've also got a bunch of people here without umbrellas, not being funny. Shouldn't they be stood under the platform? Why would you stand out in the rain if you haven't got an umbrella? It's great that they've added umbrellas. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be really happy about that. But, you know, this guy should not be stood in the rain, and this guy shouldn't have his umbrella up whilst he's stood underneath the platform. If you're going to do it properly, for God's sakes.
There will be umbrellas.
yay! So Matt, we've talked umbrellas. Now let's talk rain effects, because we've significantly upgraded the effect of the rain in Train Sim World 3, haven't we?
Yeah, so one of the key areas that the rain has improved is it now lands.
That's always a good start.
So you now get all the splashes on the ground, and it just makes for such an atmospheric, particularly for out first person walking around.
Guarantee you don't get puddles.
It's a small thing, but it makes a big difference to just...
Whilst they would do, I mean, that is a small thing. It's a very easy implementation, but if they'd have added puddles that just accumulate when it rains, now that really would be a step forward, but they haven't.
The immersion of being there and that under that rain is actually there.
Okay, moving on to our final section of the features, because we've talked quite a lot about various different things so far, but we couldn't have all of these new weather patterns and new weather types without including some effects to be able to correspond with that. So Matt, tell us a little bit more about what we can expect.
So in terms of video effects or VFX, we have got lightning. Essentially, you can access this.
I nearly mentioned that earlier. In one of the clips they showed earlier, there was a bolt of lightning in the background. But I didn't say anything because I thought, obviously wrong, I thought that there was lightning in Train Sim World 2. Maybe there was lightning up in the sky, but not arcing down to the ground, maybe. So, okay.
As well as it happening dynamically, you can, if you switch to custom weather, and you want to set your weather up yourself, if you turn up the precipitation to maximum, then you'll get lightning as well, and thunderclaps and all sorts of things going
so
on.
There's audio cues as well.
There's audio cues as well. So
amazing.
It's actually it's really atmospheric, just cranking it up and driving and seeing the flash of lightning and the thunder rolling around is awesome.
The power of that mixed with the power of the loco is just, I can imagine the atmosphere.
Okay, so what I'll be looking to test, if I remember to do it, is cranking up the precipitation so that we have lightning, and then seeing if that lightning makes the signs on the track light up, because it should. And if it doesn't, then I'll be quite disappointed.
As you're going through, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's a.
In fact, everything should light up, and I know the side of the train did, but I mean, everything should light up. The inside of the cab as well.
It's a really big step up.
Yeah, and what else can we see, Matt?
So one of the other things that we've been wanting to do for quite some time is, because it's kind of iconic for electric trains, is the spark effects and arcing that they get on the contact points. So we put some time in and some thought into
That's nice.
how that would work and why that would work and when it would work. And it means now that third rail trains, you'll see their shoes occasionally sparking. Overhead trains, the pantographs will spark occasionally. But more than that, it's tied into what's going on. So on a wet day or a snowy day, you'll get more sparks. And if you're drawing more power because you've got throttle up higher, again, you'll draw more, it'll create more sparks. So, you know, you can find that putting a lot of power on a wet day coming out of a station, it could cause, you know, a bit of a light show. You know, it's really sort of a stunning effect to see.
Lightning on the air, lightning in the wheels. We've got lightning everywhere. So much lightning. So Matt, let's talk about wind, because we were talking earlier about the speeds for the 𝐒𝐢𝐦 on 𝗏𝐻𝐿 𝐕𝗏. My understanding is that the reason why, well, one of the reasons why that speed change is there is because of the wind effects as you're going over the viaduct. Are we simulating that in Train Sim World 3?
So we're adding extra physics in to look at the way that the wind impacts the train and how you might need to drive, perhaps apply a little more power if you're in head-on wind. But the other area that we're implementing or impacting that is on the 𝗏𝐻𝐿 𝐬𝐴 route. In higher wind situations, the drivers are instructed to set their 𝐿𝑍B at lower speeds. So you'll be able to operate at the lower speeds accordingly. And similarly, the different trains, as I said previously, they run at different speeds, but then they also run differently whether they're on the viaduct or in a tunnel. So actually the whole 𝐿𝑍B system has been upgraded in order to be able to support that facet of how 𝐿𝑍B works in terms of wind behaviours, tunnels, viaducts and so on and so forth.
Very exciting, and again, one of those things that perhaps you wouldn't immediately notice but really enhances the challenge that's involved in the route.
Yeah, it's a depth thing. It's something that you know, when you're flying down the route and as the weather changes and you realise that you're going to have to manage that and cope with that, it's really interesting. So
we've talked rain, we've talked wind, let's talk snow. Is snow going to get an invite to this party of VFX?
Oh, absolutely. When you watch videos of trains in the snow, they don't leave the snow alone. They drag the snow with them.
Yeah.
And they can kick up some of the most amazing snow clouds, both alongside them and behind them. And so what we're calling kick-up effects. So that particularly when you're driving along, you get that interference with the ground, if you like.
Thanks very much for that, Matt. So, a pretty comprehensive
Looks all right.
Commitment from us to improving the experience for players, whether it's their first time playing the game or whether you've been a Train Sim World player for a long time. And we're really excited about all of those. We can't wait to show you a little bit more about them in future live streams. But for now, let's move on to the things that we think you're going to need to know before September the 6th.
Okay, so no mention of controller support, no mention of head tracking. These are things that they promised in TSW1. I don't see how you can trust anything this company says. I'm really hoping, as I said at the beginning, that Train Sim World 3 will be a turning point. But because of their past, because of their history, because of their consistency to not deliver on promises they make, it's really hard to trust these people.
So let's start with the Preserve collection, because I know a lot of players will be asking, does my stuff transfer over from Train Sim World 2?
Genuinely, I was hoping it wouldn't, because there are so many problems with the Train Sim World 2 content that still haven't been fixed by all accounts. I don't bother even looking at this game anymore. That they're just going to move on to Train Sim World 3. It's just going to be exactly the same problem, but you're paying for the whole game again. It just seems self-perpetuating philosophy. No, you know what I mean. They're just going to repeat the same mistakes again. It's quite disappointing. But I know a lot of you out there have spent a lot of money on Train Sim World 2 content, and I'm not sure the benefits you think you're going to get from transferring your Train Sim World 2 content to Train Sim World 3 is actually going to be any good to you, because all these lighting effects and these new improved like physics and stuff like that, do you actually think they're going to be applied to your Train Sim World 2 content? I'd almost put money on the fact that it won't be. So you're going to have it there in spirit, but not in actuality. You're not going to get a better DLC pack or a better DLC experience, I don't think. I haven't seen it yet, obviously. So I barely see the point of transferring all that content over from Train Sim World 2 to Train Sim World 3. When they went from Train Sim World 1 to Train Sim World 2, they were basically slapping people in the face because people had been patiently waiting for these content promises from Dovetail Games that never materialised. I think they should have just cut their losses and said, look, Train Sim World 2 has limitations. We're going to support all of the Train Sim World 2 content, but we're going to start a new game called Train Sim World 3, and we're going to do it right this time. That's what I was hoping they were going to do, but...
In short, yes it will. Everything that you currently own within Train Sim World 2 will be available for Train Sim World 3 on the day of release.
But will it still be as buggy as it is now? Yes, probably.
Now, I know we didn't have the best experience with Train Sim World 2, and I think that's part of the reason why we've made this commitment for everything to be available on day one, because it wasn't a smooth experience for players last time, was it?
No, it wasn't, and we learned a lot of lessons from how that worked, and we'll be making sure that that goes smoothly this time. And the support team will be around to assist if you have any questions, any concerns.
Absolutely, yeah. The support team are armed with what they need to in order to make sure your experience is as smooth as possible going into Train Sim World 3.
So I'll have to contact the support team and ask them, are all the bugs and issues and limitations on my Train Sim World 2 DLC content still going to be the same problems, bugs and limitations, or are you going to somehow magically fix everything for Train Sim World 3? This just doesn't make any sense to me, guys.
Let's talk about platforms. Train Sim World 3 will be available on Steam, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X, Series S and Xbox One, and Epic, and it will also be available on Xbox Game Pass as well. With Train Sim World 3, you'll have more opportunities than ever before to customise your experience, and that's no different with the pricing options as well. We have 6 different options available to players, including a deluxe edition and a standard edition, which are available to pre-order now, more on that in a second, as well as regional editions for UK, Germany and USA, and there's a Spirit of Steam edition as well. If you'd like
Players who already own and or Spirit of Steam Liverpool Lime Street Crew add-ons will receive the updated versions of these routes. So there you go. Updated versions. So the DLC that you've got before will be exactly the same DLC. It will not be any different or improved or any better. So what the hell is the point of supporting it? It really doesn't make any sense.
If you'd like to pre-order or you want to find out a little bit more information about the different options available to you, head to our website now where there'll be all the details. We've covered a lot of ground today, and you all at home I'm sure will have lots of questions for us. So tomorrow we'll be doing a special roadmap live stream for Train Sim World 3 where I'll be joined by Matt and some of the rest of the team to be able to go over those questions in a bit more detail. And if you like what you've seen tonight, pre-order is now available on the platform of your choosing for standard or deluxe editions. 4-day early access benefit, which is something that we've never done before, and I'm...
No, but other companies like EA Sports or EA Games have done that many times before, and it's just another way of you encouraging you to pay before the game is released.
Very excited about. So you will get access to Train Sim.
It's all a sell. I hate business these days. There used to be morals in business. Now there's just none.
4 days before anybody else, and you'll also get
4 days before anybody else, except for all the other people who pay their money. Sorry, that just made me...
livery designer decals as well. Check out your chosen platform for more details. And if we've whetted your appetite for more of this kind of stuff, you're in luck. We've got plenty of live streams, plenty of dev blogs, plenty of articles coming up for you in the next 3 to 4 weeks as we build up to release to give you a little bit more information about Train Sim World 3. We're really, really excited, Matt, aren't we?
Absolutely hyped.
And you can check out all of those on our website now. The link is available on the screen for you. So Matt, how are we feeling now that it's out into the open?
It's a big relief.
Okay, guys, I'm just going to wrap up real quick. There's a lot of stuff there which sounds quite positive. Dynamic weather is something we've all been asking for a very, very, very long time. And I think that's probably where most of the work has gone. I'm glad that they've stripped out and rebuilt the lighting system, although I've just shown you in their content there that the lighting inside of tunnels still looks pretty shocking. They've added lightning, they've added arcs on the wheels, and they've added some sort of average kick-up system for the snow when the train's going through snow. So, yeah, okay. There's definitely some improvements, more improvements than I think we've seen from Dovetail Games for a very, very long time, which probably explains the higher price tag that this particular version of Train Sim World has got. I don't see the point of copying over Train Sim World 2 content. You've got Train Sim World 2 for that. It really doesn't make any sense to me. All they're doing is limiting themselves in what they can do moving forward. They're going to have the exact same problems they had before, and they've still got to fix them. So I don't see how that benefits anybody at all. Longer routes, obviously something we've all been asking for, and a little possible hint of where they've extended a route. It sounds to me like maybe they're testing the water for having routes being connected, and then you can connect routes and have a really long, you could have the whole of the UK potentially at the end of it. That would be amazing, but they haven't said that's coming. That's just something that I've been asking for a long time, and maybe they've found a way to get the timetables to work with that system. Who knows? Any which way, excuse me, any which way, it's not long to wait for Train Sim World 3, so I'm going to go see if I can find some actual gameplay content. I could ask questions on the videos, but honestly, I wouldn't get straight answers, and they'd just be disrespectful anyway, because that's how Sam in particular, but Dovetail Games operate. They're not a company to be trusted. So I do urge you to be cautious about pre-ordering this game, but I know a lot of you will, because at the moment at least, what alternatives are there? None that I can see. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Goodbye for now.